Welcome to the What's Happening Birmingham video podcast.
This podcast is brought to you by the Jefferson County Department of Health. Hello, everyone. This is Jarvis S. Scott with What's Happening in Birmingham. Today, I have the honor and pleasure of welcoming back ABC 3340 weather meteorologist James Spann. Good morning, Mr. Spann.
Jarvis, what's on your mind? What's happening? How was your Christmas?
Great. And if you all are watching this video, welcome to 2021. This is my first podcast episode. So who better to start off with than Mr. Spann kicking it off? So kind of give you all kind of like a little background. We originally were supposed to do this back in the springtime, and then the world changed for everybody pretty much with COVID-19. So let's kind of start off from there. How did it affect you personally?
Well, you know, the first thing, Jarvis, with COVID, the first concern we have, it's sheltering during tornadoes. I mean, I'll just shoot straight with you. This thing broke in, February and March, and that's about the time our spring tornado season begins. And so you had people hearing that you should stay physically separated and that you don't need to be in a group of people and you need to be wearing masks and all of these things. And then here we come on television, if we have tornadoes, telling people to go to a safe place. And for so many people in the state that live in, say, mobile homes, they're going to go to a community shelter where you might have 15, 20, 30 or more people in a very small space. And so the first thing we had to do was coordinate a message on what to tell people. And the way I do things like that, I'm not a clinician. Don't play one on television. Don't want to be one. I am not a physician. I'm not an expert in infectious diseases. So we went to ADPH, the Alabama Department of Public Health, and helped them kind of carve out a statement for us to use. And they did exactly what we wanted, and it was what we wanted them to say. Not that we told them what to say, but, for people, we had to tell them your first priority, it's to take care of yourself during that tornado. This could kill you immediately. This is an immediate threat to life. And you go into that shelter. Now, once you're in there, do your best you can to stay, physically separated and, wear a mask and all that. But you've got to take care of yourself during that tornado first. So we had some messaging issues to learn in March as the season started. And I think by the time we got to April, the message was down. And we had a really big tornado outbreak on Easter Sunday in the state. Now, for people that live in Birmingham, it didn't really affect the Birmingham metro that much, but we had, I want to say that day, over 40 tornadoes. It was a big tornado day across the Southeast United States, and a bunch of those were in Alabama. But nobody lost their life. So I think it worked. That's our main goal, no loss of life during tornadoes. And so it worked on that day. So I think for the weather enterprise, that's the biggest issue. And of course, hurricanes, that the hurricane season comes along. And for people on the Gulf Coast, they have the same issues that we have during tornado season here. But I think we've gotten past that. And other than that, a lot of us work at home these days, which is fine. A lot of us are set up to do that anyway. I work a morning shift here at my house every day anyway. I do a segment on television and do radio and all this stuff here. So that's no problem for me. So that most weather people, we're pretty flexible. We can do our job almost anywhere.
Okay. And while we I like how you say with no physician, but I guess when this first came out with COVID, people was asking everybody, even in your profession, because it was so much unknown about the disease. I've been probably wondering.
Yeah. And I think people know that I'm a straight shooter. I don't do politics. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm a straight shooter. And again, when people would ask me about it, I would say the same thing to them. You're asking the wrong guy. I learned years ago in my business, tell them what you know and don't tell them what you don't know.
Okay.
And if you don't know, things about this, you shouldn't be talking about it. Now, having said that, I do volunteer at a fairly high level in healthcare. Most people don't know that about me. I've been doing this for 15 years. I am the chairman of the board of a large hospital here. I've always been interested in healthcare and mainly, the first responders and what they do in the EDs during tornadoes. All this stuff got me interested. And so I have been volunteering at that capacity for 15 years. I know a lot of ER docs, know a lot of infectious disease experts, but that doesn't make me one. So that's the first thing I tell people. You're going to need to talk with all this noise is on social media. It's just noise, and politics has gotten involved. Go talk to your doctor. That's what you need to do. Go talk to your doctor. Let them tell you what you need to do and listen to them, because they know better than any weather guy or politician or whoever that's not qualified to talk about it. So that's always been my advice, is to go talk to your doctor.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people was like, when it first happened, it was like, well, you go outside, the sun can kill it, and the air, and because it was airborne, people are so worried about it. It's like, okay, what does this have to do with the weather?
And again, I'm not so sure we know that correlation. And again, I have talked with a lot of infectious disease experts on this, and I just don't think that correlation is as close as some people make it out to be, whether it's hot or cold or whatever. I mean, at some point, we're going to get past this. We've had pandemics in history. We'll have them again. This is just part of living on this planet, and we'll get past this. But it's so frustrating. I think a lot of people thought, well, in this modern time, this could never happen. Well, yes, it can. It's just, and again, it's going to happen again. So I think with the vaccine that's now being administered, and let me just say this too, Jarvis, these healthcare professionals, they're exhausted. I mean, they are exhausted. I can't tell you how tired they are. I will never complain about being fatigued in my life again when we have a critical shortage of clinicians here in Birmingham, especially nurses. And for a lot of the younger nurses that maybe don't have a family, they're paid huge amounts of money to serve as travel nurses. And I'm not blaming them. I do the same thing. And they travel all over the country doing the same thing they would do here, but that's taken a lot of our pool out of Birmingham. And so you've got these big hospitals fighting over a small pool of clinicians, and they're working long hours, and they are beat down and exhausted. So one of my hearts, it's for them. And I think people don't really understand how tough it's been. Not necessarily capacity as being the big problem, but staffing with these hospitals. And they have been absolute heroes. I mean, one of the great regrets I have, for Christmas Eve, for 15 years, I've walked through the halls of my hospital, giving out candy and laughing and cutting up and taking pictures and smiling and encouraging people. Couldn't do that this year because of the situation we have. And it just broke my heart. So they got a memo. What good is a memo? I mean, goodness. So if you know of anybody in healthcare, just love on them a little bit. They need some encouragement right now.
Okay. So last year, 2020 weather season, what are some things that kind of surprised you?
Well, it was, every year is weird here. I've been doing this for 42 years. Every single year has had anomalies and odd things that happen. I think obviously the biggest headline for 2020, where we are, would be the hurricane season. It just wouldn't stop. It was brutal. And we knew going in that it was going to be pretty active. Most people had that idea. And I don't like long-range forecasts. Goodness, it's all I can do, Jarvis, to tell people what the weather's going to do tomorrow, much less a season in advance. But for those that do like to do long-range forecasting, they saw a lot of clues that it might be active. We had a La Nina INSO cycle, the El Nino Southern Oscillation. It was in a La Nina phase. And typically when that's the case, the winds across the Atlantic basin are very favorable for hurricane formation. And the other thing you note is that the water was pretty warm, the sea surface temperatures. And so with the anomalies, with the warm water and the La Nina, it just seemed like the players were on the board for an active season. And we had one. We had 30 named storms. We got into the Greek alphabet. which has happened before. But and I will say, a lot of the storms this year that got names, I call them garbage storms. These were storms that they lasted for like one day. They were in the middle of nowhere. They never would have received a name 30 or 40 years ago because we didn't have the satellite technology to even know they were there. So a lot of them were junk systems, but there were some nasty, nasty hurricanes this year. I think back on Lake Charles, Louisiana. I don't know if you've ever been to Lake Charles. It's a beautiful city. They were hit by Laura, which came in from the Western Gulf. And closer to home here in Alabama, we had a direct hit for the first time since 2004. In 2004, we had a hurricane called Ivan that came right up into Gulf Shores and Orange Beach and tore that place up. That was a Category 3. This year we had a Category 2. And again, I don't like getting hung up in these numbers too much, because Category 2 is a big deal. You ask anybody in Gulf Shores about Hurricane Sally. That was the name of the Category 2 that came up, and it slammed right into Baldwin County. And it was rough. I mean, it was a very rough ride. And then we had hurricanes that came nearby, like Zeta. Zeta came in a little west of Alabama, but it still produced a lot of flooding. And Zeta actually did more damage inland to Alabama because of the path that it took. And it took down some of these highly populated areas with all these down trees and power lines. And at one point, we had 700,000 people with no power. And I know at my house, we had no power for 4.5 days. And, it's kind of cute for the first hour or two, but after about 3 hours, you want that power back on. And so that created a lot of human suffering. So I think the highlight of 2020 was the big hurricane season. And again, the tornadoes in the spring were pretty active. Easter Sunday was a big outbreak. Now, the second season we have, which is November, December, was a dud. We had hardly any severe weather during those 2 months. We had a little bitty tornado in southwest Jefferson County that got down around where Bessemer and Hoover come together for about 10 minutes in the middle of the night. Nobody was injured from that, but again, it was pretty quiet. And we had, a few snowflakes around during the year, but I think no doubt 2020 will be remembered for the hurricane season. So, but now we're done with it, so we got to look ahead.
Yeah, so 2021, we head into the weather season, and, in Alabama, I guess this is probably the time of the year that you probably put in overtime, because everybody remembers, of course, 1993, and then about 20 some years later, 2014, right? January.
Yeah, the blizzard of 93 was our generational snow. That's a once in a lifetime type event. And for those that weren't alive back then, we had officially 13 inches at the Birmingham airport, but a lot of communities around Birmingham had 2 feet of snow. That's not 2 inches, that's 2 feet. And we had wind gust to hurricane force on the ridges with the snow. So we had whiteout conditions. It was a blizzard. And, again, that's the next time we have a deal like that, I'll be at Elmwood Cemetery, which is probably a good thing. And then in 6 years ago in 2014, that was a radically different kind of situation. We only had 2 inches of snow, and anywhere up north they would laugh at that. Chicago, Minneapolis, Buffalo, Cleveland. That's just what happens every day up there. But what happened down here with Snowmageddon, and we didn't understand it, by the way. We blew it badly on the impact. And all that matters is the impact. That's all that matters is how does it impact people. We didn't think it would foul up the traffic that much. And man, were we wrong. What happened, the snow came down and the ground was warm. And because the ground was warm, the snow melted. And it was light snow, wasn't that much. But the air was 18 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh. And I've been alive a long time. And in my life, to my knowledge, that's the first time we've had accumulating snow with temperatures that low. Typically, when it snows here, it's about 35 degrees, but it was 18. And so what happened, the snow melt immediately turned to ice. We had a flash freeze. And so we have zero experience with a flash freeze, and the rest is history. It had the impact of a crippling ice storm. And you know what happened with that deal. So, here we are as we start 2021. And again, my disclaimer, Jarvis, is this. I don't do, long range outlooks. I have thoughts, but I don't like to do it. There's just not much skill And like I say, it's all I can do to figure out what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. But as we look at the season, when people ask about snow, typically every winter season, we have one good threat. Now, whether it pans out or not, that depends on where you are. You might have a situation where Bessemer gets a crippling ice storm, and in Tuscaloosa, they just have a cold rain. And that happens a lot around here. The pattern looks active for January. I will say, if we get through January without a significant snow or ice threat, I would be surprised. I'll just put it that way. We might even have some situation a week from today. There's a system that comes along in about a week, and it's kind of iffy. But if we can get some deeper cold air in here, the pattern looks active. My concern is the tornado season in the spring. We're still in that La Nina phase. We talked about that with the hurricanes. And typically with an La Nina phase, the spring tornado seasons can be active here. 2011 was a La Nina tornado season. And you might recall what happened in 2011. This was 10 years ago. We had, on the 27th of April, we had 62 tornadoes in one day. And we're coming up on that 10th anniversary. And I can't believe it's been 10 years. But, and again, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm just saying I have some concern the spring might be active. And by spring, March, April, May. But the good news, hurricane season should be pretty quiet this year, in theory. We should be making the transition from La Nina back to El Nino. And during an El Nino phase, the winds are not favorable for hurricanes in the Atlantic basin. So I have a funny feeling this year will be pretty quiet. In fact, if you look at last year globally, the season was actually below average. It was nasty in the Atlantic basin where we are, but the Indian Ocean, the Pacific, all those other basins, quiet as a mouse. And the whole thing's going to flip this summer. So most likely it could be quiet. But like I say, all it takes is one. If you get one hurricane in the whole season and that sucker comes up on Mobile Bay, then it's a big year. So we always have to watch that. And then beyond that, the concern, it's when you don't have a lot of tropical activity, you always have a little concern about drought and heat waves and nasty stuff like that. The tropics can be nasty and they can provide a lot of damage, but at the same time, they bring really beneficial rain up in here, which we had last year. And when the ground is moist, the heat levels typically aren't that bad. The hottest temperature for Birmingham last year was 96, and that's nothing. I mean, goodness, you live here long enough, you're going to have years where it might hit 104, 105, and you're about to go into spontaneous combustion. The summer heat just wasn't that bad last year. But again, if the tropics are quiet, that always, opens up the door for some potential for droughts or heat waves. And I hate that. Out of all the kinds of weather, those are my two least favorite issues to deal with, a drought and a heat wave. So hopefully that's not going to happen this year.
And I also know too, lately we just been getting a whole lot of freeze, just cold weather kind of. Is it earlier than expected?
It's cold. Yeah, you're good. It's colder than average. December was much colder than average here. And for those that, and let me just say this about weather, there's no such thing as normal weather. Weather is just always not normal. There are averages, and that's what we use. Average highs and lows here are in the 50s and 30s this time of the year. And in December, it's around 60 and 40, and we were much colder than that. And all it takes is one or two really good Arctic flushes in January, February. We can have those where it's a lot colder than December. And with this active storm track, you get a good storm that forms in the northern Gulf. You better look out. It doesn't snow here a lot, but by golly, it can. In fact, we just came through New Year's Eve, and this is embarrassing to say, Jarvis. I was alive when this happened. New Year's Eve, 1963. Okay. I mean, I was little. I was like 6 years old, but we had parts of Alabama had 15 to 18 inches of snow on New Year's Eve.
Wow.
And it lingered obviously for several days, and it was extremely disruptive. It was the snow was not as great as the blizzard of 93, but it was a whopper. And that was your classic Gulf of Mexico storm interacting with Arctic air. And again, the players are on the field. We'll just see. It's sometimes you put players on the field and nothing good happens. It just doesn't happen. But sometimes you can have a big one. So we'll just have to wait and see. And again, our next crack at it anything wintry is probably going to be Monday, January 11th. I don't know when the show's going to be released, but that's about a week from the day we're doing this here.
All right, and I guess one thing too, while I got you in front of me is, as far as weather preparedness, as far as the weather radio, and there's a million weather apps. Is there anything, people should get this year to kind of keep them on top of the weather or get a sense?
Well, that's my big thing. What happened 10 years ago was just horrific. 252 people died in one day from weather here. And again, if you tell me that would happen on a day in my career, I'd say you're crazy, because the warnings are good. And so what we did, we went back to the social scientists to ask them what in the world went wrong here. And so we've learned so much from them. But the biggest issue is a lot of people never, ever, ever, ever got the warning. And for some of those tornadoes on that day, you had 45 minutes to do something. That's a long lead time. Typically, the lead time is not that great. And the biggest problem, Jarvis, is a lot of people honestly believe in their heart and in their soul, they're going to hear some outdoor siren. And that siren mentality killed more people than anything else that day. We know that. In fact, there are some days I'm so angry about that. I just want to climb up these poles and take those sirens down and burn them. That way, that you won't hear them. But they have never been effective at reaching people in a building, a house, a church, a school during a raging storm. They serve a purpose. They reach a limited number of people outside. That's why we call them outdoor warning sirens. And obviously everybody's got a phone these days. And so, this is a key way of getting it, obviously. And every phone sold in the United States has something called wireless emergency alerts. That does not involve an app. And you're going to get a tornado warning in theory. So we just ask people, please don't turn that off. Do not turn off emergency alerts. A lot of people do that because they don't like to get Amber Alerts, which is one of the things that they push. Number one, that doesn't make sense to me. Goodness, if I knew a child is missing, I would want to help. And why don't you want to help? I don't understand that. But anyway, please leave those on. And the other thing is just to find a good app that pushes warnings. And obviously, we all hawk our own station apps. ABC 3340's app is free. All the stations have free apps, and they're good at warnings. But the other thing, Jarvis, in terms of getting that warning, is that every house needs a weather radio, because you know what? If there's a big tornado coming down the street, guess what? These cell towers are going down, and that fancy phone you got won't work. And you won't get any of these messages on your phone. So those weather radios work independently of the cell networks. So they work even if your cell phone stops working. And we know that a very low percentage of Alabama households have them. Hardly any of them. And that we've got to work on that. And they're kind of pricey. They cost $30. That's a lot of money. But boy, they are important. So if you're listening and if you don't have one, consider getting one. They have a battery backup. They keep working. The power goes off. But that's the main thing. And the other thing I would just suggest is be sure everybody in your family knows where you're going in your house. If you live in a site-built house, and wherever that safe place is, whether it's a closet or a bathroom or basement, whatever, everybody's got to have a helmet. And, it might not be a good look for you, like especially for somebody as old as I am. It's like putting, lipstick on a hog. It's not a good look, but most people die from blunt force trauma to the skull region. And if you put on a $5 bicycle helmet or a batting helmet that your kids might have if they play baseball or softball, that'll save your life. And that's so many people died April 27th of blunt force trauma up here to the skull. So in that safe place, have a helmet for everybody. And the other thing, it's the mobile home situation. And that's a real challenge. Away from cities, a large percentage of Alabamians live in mobile homes or manufactured housing. And that's not safe. You can't stay there. It's like a car. You just can't stay there. And so you've got to know where you're going. If it's 2:00 in the morning or 2:00 in the afternoon, weekend or weekday, whenever, and have that plan ready to implement, because you just cannot stay in a mobile home.
Can you say something, and I want to speak about this, and also kind of tell people, I'm trying to ask a question, but I'll make a statement. Social media, weather people, people who think they can report like it. They take a video, because I see a lot of people, they always send you pictures and videos, how the weather's looking, where they are, and things like that.
Yeah, social media is great and it's horrible all at the same time. It's a marvelous tool for us to reach people that we would not reach, using traditional methods, television or radio. We reach a lot of people over there. I mean, a lot, which is great. We can push severe weather information. We can push daily forecasts. It's great. And people can talk back to us and ask questions. They can send pictures. They can send video.
Mm-hmm.
And during times of severe weather, that is just absolutely crucial.
Mm-hmm.
People don't do anything if I'm showing radar and there's a tornado. They just see a bunch of colors and that's James Spann, hot air, blah, blah, blah. Hey, but if I show them a video or a photograph of a big old wedge tornado, they're digging a hole. So being able to get that in real time and push that to the TV coverage is just outstanding. The downside of it is that there's a lot of really bad information that gets spread over there. And again, I guess this could go for anything, not just weather. But the biggest problem we have, it's kids that love weather. These are typically teenagers. They're either in middle school or they're in high school, and they just love snow, or they love hurricanes, or they love tornadoes. And so they start poking around looking for scary maps that they don't understand. They have no rudimentary knowledge of how computer models work, none whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But they know where to find these maps. And if they can show some scary map that shows a Category 5 hurricane coming up on Mobile in 3 weeks, they're going to put it on their Facebook page. They create these weather center pages. And people don't know it's some, 14-year-old kid. They think it's a professional meteorologist. And so what happens, they get likes and shares, because that's what people are going to like and share. It's stuff like that. If I get on there and say, the weather's going to be dull, sunny days, fair nights, nothing's happening for a couple of weeks, nobody's going to share that. But if you come on there and say, we're going to have a major snowstorm in 3 weeks, ooh, boy, everybody's going to share that. And what it does, it's a dopamine hit. The neurological function in your brain, the pleasure center, dopamine is part of that. And the clinicians will tell you that looking at your likes and that's why people look at their phone all the time to see who liked this and who shared this. It's dopamine. It becomes addictive. And so these kids get hung up in that, and they're just going to keep pushing that stuff during winter storms. I guarantee you, there's probably some guy right now, and he's a kid that's forecasting a big snowstorm for Alabama in 3 weeks. It could be the biggest ice storm of the century. And ooh, everybody shares that. Ooh, and so we have to put out that fire. There's no skill. And so it takes time that we don't have putting down this stuff. So all we ask, Jarvis, is that people think before they share something. Consider the source. If it's coming from something like Uncle Joe's Tot Locker and forecast page, that's probably not a good source of weather information,
Okay. So my final thoughts, how can they reach you and follow you and, keep up to date?
I hang out just about everywhere. I'm pretty responsive on Facebook. There's a lot of fake James Spann pages. The one that has the blue check is the professional page where I push the weather content. So there's a blue check. That's the real me. Twitter, I'm just Spann. Same thing. A lot of fake James Spann accounts. Look for the little blue check. Instagram, it's Spann WX. And I'll say this, Instagram has become an important part of social media where we are. A lot of people have escaped Facebook because of the hate and the political rhetoric and all this malarkey that they're just sick of seeing, where Instagram is kind of more of a happy place. And I agree with that. Even a lot of older people my age have escaped over there. So it's Spann WX on Instagram, Spann WX on Snapchat, and on TikTok. And again, I have to reach young people. Say, why some old man like you on TikTok? Well, I can't do the cool music videos like the kids can do. That stuff's pretty funny, but you know what I can do? I can reach them to let them know there's a tornado coming, and they're not going to watch television. They're going to hang out over there. So having that platform to reach younger people is critical. A young life is just as important as an old life. It doesn't matter. So I hang out in all those places, and I'm always pretty responsive. So yeah, just hit me up, and I'm around.
All right. Well, Mr. Spann, thanks for coming on. Good to
Jarvis, my pleasure, man. Thanks a lot. It's always fun. You're the greatest. Thanks a lot. Hope you have a great 2021.
Yes. You was the first interview of 2021. So I feel so honored that you decided to come on today. And like you said, hopefully, in this time, biggest thing we had to deal with was the weather. But as last year, other things happened that was life or death. So hopefully we could take and learn, and move forward.
Absolutely. Well, thanks a lot. And you have a marvelous day. Appreciate the time this morning. Yes,
and thank you all for watching this video. Please check out what'shappeningbirmingham.com for more videos, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Have a great day. Bye-bye, y'all.
Thank you for watching the What's Happening Birmingham video podcast. Please check out our website, app, or subscribe to our YouTube channel for the latest videos today.